If you want to lose weight, you've probably come across people saying that you should eat 1,200 calories a day. And let's be honest, part of you might be thinking, if I just eat less, if I eat 1,200 calories, I'll get faster results. That can be appealing. But at the same time, you've probably heard other people saying that that's unsustainable, not realistic, it's gonna set you up for potential health issues, and 1,200 calories is toddler level of food. So what's the truth? In today's video, I'm breaking down exactly how 1,200 calorie diets work. Why is this the number of calories you see everywhere? Why 1,200 calories might be necessary in some situations, which is much more likely to work for you long-term so you can lose fat without starving or feeling deprived all the time. Let's dive in, starting with part number 1. When does 1,200 calories actually make sense? All right, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here for a second. And this is through my experience as a PhD researcher, but also someone that's worked with hundreds of fat loss clients. But there are some situations when 1,200 calories on a daily level is necessary to create the environment for fat loss, to create fat loss results. And I have some examples. Now, these are generalizations of groups of people, but here are some examples of when 1,200 calories per day could be necessary, especially when it comes to fat loss. It could be necessary for very petite individuals. Think short stature, small frame women mostly. Could also be necessary for very competitive physique athletes near the end of their cut, like right where they're getting ready for their show. And they're pushing levels of fat loss that just aren't sustainable. And they know it, but that's the point. Or in a completely different scenario, with extremely sedentary people that don't burn a lot of energy. They might need to be eating something like 1,200 calories. Now here's the thing to note about all these situations. Number 1, these are all individuals that might require it. If you're just scrolling by on the internet and you come across a TikTok post that says you should be eating 1,200 calories without knowing what you require and what you need for your goals, it's most likely not gonna be appropriate for you. But in some situations, where this is required, if you don't move a lot, if you're quite small to begin with, but you still have fat loss goals, or you're trying to get on stage at a level of body fat that you've never got to before, it might be required. But also keep in mind that this level of food probably isn't the thing that you want to be doing forever. These plans are usually short-term, so only for a period of time through which it's required to get to the goal. With that being said, there's usually also a goal in mind. It's usually also highly structured, meaning that the 1,200 calories is going to have still an appropriate amount of protein and the most nutrients possible to make the 1,200 calories work, and usually closely coached and monitored. And someone's making objective decisions for you about this 1,200 calorie diet. If it's required at all, how to help you navigate it, and also just as importantly, how to help you get out of it once the goal is reached. So instead of just thinking about, is a 1,200 calorie diet right for me, as a blanket statement, you need to start thinking differently about it. How much food can I be eating in order to reach my goals? What is necessary? What is required? Usually that means getting closer to the numbers of what you're actually doing now as a starting place, instead of just going to 1,200 calories automatically and following that. I'm gonna show you how to do that at the end of this video. But for now, just keep this in mind. There are some situations when 1,200 calories are required. Now, if you look at the energy requirements for growing children, like literally toddlers, 2 years old, 3 years old, they're gonna need more energy than that to grow, to learn, to develop, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Here's a really small human and a fully grown adult. They're eating the same amount of food, when in this case, a lot of the times, the adult is trying to lose fat tissue and typically has much more energy stored in order to make up that balance. So these are two completely different situations. In reality, they really shouldn't be compared, but I know why people do it, and that's because 1,200 calories isn't the reality for most people, so we shouldn't just default to it. Now, before I talk about why it's a bad idea for a lot of people and why it can backfire, just know this. A 1,200 calorie per day diet is not evil. It might be required for you in order to achieve a new result, but it's not for everyone. Now let's move on to part 2 and talk about why it backfires for most people. The first reason why it's gonna backfire for most people is going to be a process called metabolic adaptation. Your body is really smart. It's evolved to keep you alive, So it's gonna adjust your metabolism in order to survive. So when your body starts to sense low energy through the process of weight loss and taking in less calories than you're burning, it's gonna adjust your metabolism. This doesn't happen instantly, but once you start losing weight over the long term, it will decrease your basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories you burn at rest. How much does this impact things? Well, it's probably not as much as you think. Your metabolism doesn't break or crash or grind to a halt, but over longer periods of time, it can come down around 10 or 15%, especially as you lose weight. So as a 185-pound male, if I had a BMR of around 1,800 calories before, and I diet down to 165 pounds over a few months, my metabolism might come down 180 calories. Part of this is gonna happen regardless if I diet on 1,200 calories or not, but it will definitely happen at lower levels of energy intake, and probably more so than it needs to. So we're always trying to lose fat, if that's our goal, on higher levels of food, or the most food we can while still seeing that result. Again, we're gonna touch on that in a second. But here's what's just as important as metabolic adaptation. If you're consuming low energy, there's other things that contribute to your energy expenditure, and one of those is spontaneous physical movement. This is also called NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and it's all the spontaneous movement you do that's not exercise, like moving your hands and fidgeting and pacing and toe tapping. This is a level of energy you burn that's quite variable from person to person, and is gonna be one of the first things your body automatically decreases as you take in less energy. So instead of just your metabolism crashing, which it really doesn't, we talked about that already, your body is going to decrease the amount of calories you would burn through physical movement. You get much more tired when you take in less energy. You're less likely to get up off the couch and go for a little bit of a walk around or move a little bit more. As well as your performance in your actual exercise can be impacted as well. If you're not taking in a lot of energy, you're not gonna have a lot of energy to push harder in training or to do the training at all. And lastly, as you take in less energy, your body's going to increase your hunger hormones in the attempt to get you to eat more food. This can make dieting really hard, and it's gonna be even worse at lower levels of calories. And all of these inputs are gonna make a 1,200 calorie diet really tough to follow. Let alone to eat 1,200 calories and to do it right, you're not gonna have a lot of additional calories to eat foods that'll help manage your cravings or keep you feeling content. It'll essentially be, for the most part, lean protein sources and vegetables, which means if you find yourself in a different food environment, let's say with social eating and going out, or going through your pantry with a bunch of snack foods that are hyper palatable, they're easy to consume, they have tons of calories, you're much more likely to go completely off the rails and fall into a situation where you under restrict at 1,200 calories and then go full on overblown, eat as much food as you can with food choices that go down really easily. And this is why for most people, a 1,200 calorie diet won't work and doesn't need to work, because you can eat more food on an individual level and still see results. Now, if you know you need 1,200 calories, which means you're measuring your food and tracking it, and you're not losing weight at a realistic rate, around 0.5 or 1 pounds per week, which is generally gonna be a smaller amount for people that require a 1,200 calorie diet, then you might need less food. 1,500 calories might not be a deficit for you. It might need to be 1,200. There's also something else going on here, which is there's a big difference between what someone says they're eating, what you report that you're eating, and what your required calories or energy is. Think about this being like what you say that you're doing and what you theoretically should be able to do. They're apples and oranges. Apples and oranges are actually pretty similar in this context. They're two completely different things. This one over here is typically, and we've seen this in research, 20 or 30% more. Someone is eating 20 to 30% more than they're reporting that they're eating. So if you feel as if you need 1,200 calories and you've tested it in order to be in a deficit, chances are you are getting that similar result on 1,400 calories, 1,450 calories. Whereas this is the actual true theoretical number that doesn't have any underreporting. Many people probably don't need this. But generally, in nutrition, we're just trying to be as accurate as we can be in somewhat of an inaccurate sense, especially when it comes to the applied nature of this stuff. And this is what I do through coaching, is get people to get results while just trying to be as accurate as possible and learning more about their food and what they need, and then adjust based on what we're seeing. Big picture though, most people don't need to be eating 1,200 calories. And they shouldn't, because they can get results on more calories and it's less likely to backfire on them, which means they'll be able to sustain it for a longer period of time. Good, solid, effective fat loss diets, they work because they just take longer. You're doing the right things consistently over time. It's just gonna take a longer period of time. And you can do that on more food. How much more food? Let's talk about part 3, finding the right level of food in order for you to reach your goals. Let's find the right calorie target. There's a few ways to do this. You can do a theoretical calculation where you calculate your BMR by using your age, your gender, your weight, and your height. That'll get the amount of calories you're burning through rest. And then you can add in your activity and get a rough estimate of how many calories you're burning over the course of the day, which is your energy expenditure. Then you can get a sense of how much food you need to be eating to put yourself in a deficit. In most cases, finding this total daily energy expenditure, which is going to be all of your energy needs calculated, and then subtracting around 10% or upwards of 20% off that to put you in a calorie deficit, is a good starting place. I'll include an entire resource on how to calculate your calories and the perfect starting point for fat loss down in the actual description below. But here's another way to determine your starting place, which I've found much more effective with fat loss clients. Here's what you're gonna do. Track your actual nutrition for 3 to 5 days, ideally including a weekend day, because then you're normally out of your normal routine and habits, and try not to change a thing. Don't adjust anything at all. You're probably going to, now that you're monitoring it, adjust a little bit. Maybe you don't include that pizza night where you eat 5 pieces of pizza instead of 2 and a little bit of vegetables, but still try not to adjust anything. Take those 5 days, get an average of the amount of calories that you consume, and you can do this through a nutrition tracking app, which is essentially just keeping a food journal with the serving sizes of the foods that you're eating, and it's going to calculate the calories and macronutrients from that, but just get the average calories over those 5 days. You're also going to want to measure your body weight first thing in the morning under similar conditions, but at least 3 of those days of the 5 days, ideally every day. And if you lose more than a pound or roughly half a kilo over the course of the week, chances are you're around maintenance or already in a slight calorie deficit. In many cases, this starting number, the average over the course of 5 days where you don't change up too much, is probably closer to your maintenance calories or that slight deficit than the theoretical calculation, because this is going to bake in some of that underreporting to the number as you get to learn more about your food and get closer to your actual requirements. Here's the take-home message though. You getting closer to the normal amount of food that you eat and what's required for you based on your body weight, based on your activity levels, is gonna be much more accurate and applicable to your individual situation than just following a 1,200 calorie diet because someone on the internet said you should. 1,200 calories is not a magic number. It's not good or bad. It's just not the right number for most people. You don't need to suffer your way to results. In fact, if you eat a bit more food, you'll get that result anyway, and it'll be a lot more fun and sustainable. Now, as great as all those tips are, if you're really serious about improving your nutrition and getting some fat loss results, the next thing I'm gonna have you do is check out this video I've linked up right here. Let me help you avoid the dreaded 1,200 calorie diet. In this video, I'm gonna explain to you and show you step by step how to calculate your macros for fat loss. It's gonna be way better for you. You're gonna learn how to do that in this video right here. So check it out now, and I'll see you in the next video.